Giddy, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Friday the 13th of February, 2026.
Friday the 13th. Oh, spooky.
It is, isn't it? But I was looking at the calendar this morning, looking at the headlines, and I had this thought.
Oh, yeah.
Do we really need a superstition to tell us things are a bit off? It feels a bit like putting a hat on a hat, doesn't it? Adding bad luck to everything else that's going on.
It does feel a bit redundant, I have to say. I mean, considering the state of things lately, being superstitious about a date feels almost quaint.
Quaint, yeah.
It's like worrying about a black cat crossing your path while the house is actually on fire.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. And look, we aren't here to talk about bad luck today. We are sort of here to talk about fixing it. But before we get there, I have to ask you and you listening a serious question.
Okay.
Are you sick of the glitch?
The glitch. Right. That's a very specific term.
It's the only way I can describe it. That feeling where you go to the supermarket to buy a head of lettuce and it costs as much as a small secondhand car.
Mm-hmm.
Or you open a packet of chips and it's 90% air.
Mm-hmm.
Or you flick on the TV to watch Question Time in Parliament and it just feels like like toddlers arguing over a sandpit, except these toddlers are on $100,000 a year.
It's that nagging sensation, isn't it? That the
Yes.
operating system of our society has just frozen.
Mm-hmm.
You can still move the mouse, the cursor wiggles around the screen, but you can't actually click on anything.
Nothing opens.
Nothing opens, nothing closes, it's just stuck.
That's it. It's the spinning wheel of death, but it's been applied to your entire life. From the checkout at Kohl's to the holes of Canberra, everything just feels slightly broken. Not destroyed, just glitchy.
And that is precisely what we are unpacking today. We've got a massive stack of documents here that, well, it claims to have the reboot code.
The Control-Alt-Delete for Australia.
You could say that.
Yeah.
We're diving into a movement that's being called the Purple Patch, or, to use their slightly more formal term, the Protopian Plan.
And I've got to tell you, reading through this stuff, the vibe is incredible.
Yeah.
It's honestly like if the movie The Castle had a baby with Star Trek.
That is a vivid image. I'm trying to picture Daryl Kerrigan on the Starship Enterprise.
But it's accurate, isn't it? You've got high-tech stuff, robots and lasers and digital treaties.
Yeah.
But the soul of it, the heart of it, is just so quintessentially Aussie.
It is.
It's about not getting fleeced. It's about looking after your mates. It's about telling the big end of town to pull their heads in. It's the vibe of the thing.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We have sifted through pages and pages of political manifestos. We've looked at technical schematics for robot tunnel diggers.
I am obsessed with the robot tunnel thing.
And economic white papers. Our goal is to join the dots on this movement that's starting out on Minjerribah, that's North Threadbrook Island, and explain how it's all supposed to work.
And we are doing it with one very strict rule.
The cup test.
The pub test is non-negotiable today. If you can't explain it over a schooner at the local RSL, it doesn't get in. We are not doing synergistic paradigm shifts or decentralized stakeholder actualization today.
Definitely not. Just fair dinkum explanations.
Okay, so let's start with the one big word that seems to define the whole thing. Protopia. Now, that sounds fancy. It sounds like something a tech billionaire would name their child.
Yeah.
But you reckon it's actually pretty simple.
It is, yeah. It's best to understand it by what it's not. So think about utopia.
Right. Perfect world, no problems, everyone's happy.
Exactly. It's a finish line where everyone is happy, the sun always shines, nothing ever goes wrong. It's a bit like the Stepford Wives. It's fake. It's not real.
Utopia is for dreamers or, cult leaders.
Precisely. And the problem with utopia is because it's an impossible, perfect standard, when people try to build it in the real world, they usually end up with a dictatorship. You have to force people to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Protopia is different. It's not about perfection at all. It's just about being roughly 1% better today than you were yesterday.
So it's the philosophy of she'll be right.
Yes.
But only if we actually go and fix the fence.
That is the perfect Australian translation. That's exactly it. It's about continuous small improvements. It's about the trajectory, not the destination. It's acknowledging that things are going to break. The weather will be rubbish sometimes.
The utes won't start.
The ute won't start. But if we have the right tools and the right attitude, we can fix it. We can make things a little bit better.
I love that. She'll be right, but fix the fence.
Whoa.
That is honestly the most sensible definition of progress I've ever heard. It's practical.
Yeah.
It's not promising flying cars by Tuesday, but it is promising that the pothole on your street might actually get filled.
And that practicality, that lack of lofty promises is the weapon they're using to get into politics. And this brings us to the first Major part of their strategy, which I found absolutely fascinating. They call it the bait and switch.
Oh, this is my favorite part. Because let's be honest, Aussies have a world-class bullshit detector.
We really do. It's like a national immune system against sincerity.
Yeah,
Or earnestness.
totally.
Yeah.
If a politician stands up, in a suit that costs more than my house, and they start talking about civilizational stacks
Yeah.
or the future of humanity, what we all do.
But we tune out instantly.
We tune out, we assume they're selling us something, we assume they're a wanker.
Exactly. And the sources argue that in the current attention economy, being too serious is a liability. If you come across as too earnest, people just think you're hiding something. So to get an Aussie to listen to a really complex, detailed plan about the economy and society, you first have to disarm them. You have to somehow hack that immune system.
So their strategy is this satirical bait and switch. They use the Kenny archetype. You remember Kenny? The Portaloo plumber from the movie.
Of course, the salt of the earth, heart of gold larrikin. The bloke who deals with, well, let's just say waste for a living. But he keeps his dignity and his sense of humor.
Him. Or the Kerrigan family from The Castle.
Yeah.
The underdog fighting for their home, standing up to the big guys. The bait is to present the entire movement wrapped in that relatable working class humor. They want to be the people you'd actually want to have a beer with at the pub.
And the specific example they use in the documents is, it's hilarious, but it's also kind of genius. They launched a product called the P for Australia urinal mat, P4A.
I swear, I thought this was a typo when I first read it. They're actually selling urinal mats.
Lavender-scented urinal mats, yes. The tagline is basically taking the piss out of politics. It's a joke product. But think about the psychology of that for a second.
Oh, okay. If I'm at the train station on the way to work, and I see a politician in a suit handing out a glossy pamphlet, I keep walking. I don't make eye contact.
You pretend you're on the phone.
100%. But if I see a bloke selling a urinal mat that mocks the prime minister, stop. I have a chuckle. I want to know what that's about.
Exactly. And once you are laughing, your guard is down. Your natural cynicism filter is temporarily disabled, and that is the switch. Once they have you engaged because of the joke, that's when they hit you with the real ideas.
It's a Trojan horse made of toilet humor.
Effectively, yes. You're laughing at the urinal mat, and suddenly they're explaining why the cost of living is directly tied to the way we measure GDP, and you're actually listening because you don't feel like you're being lectured to by some suit.
It's bloody clever.
Yeah.
So they've hooked us with the urinal mat. We're listening. Now let's talk about that glitch they want to fix. We mentioned the price of lettuce, but it goes a lot deeper than that, doesn't it?
It really does. The glitch, as they define it, is this fundamental disconnect between the reality of Australian life and the sort of theater of Australian politics. We're all working harder than ever. Productivity is technically up. Technology is better than it's ever been. And yet most people feel poorer. They feel like they're going backwards.
And the environment feels like it's packing it in. You've got floods one year, fires the next, then a heat wave. It feels unstable.
Right. So the operating system is corrupted. You click save on the document of your life. You buy the house, you work the job, but the computer just makes a grinding noise and deletes your savings.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the politicians in Canberra are on TV arguing about things that have absolutely zero impact on whether you can afford dinner for your kids that night.
So how do we fix the glitch? The plan isn't a revolution, is it? They're not saying burn it all down.
No, and that's a really important distinction. Revolutions are messy. They're violent. And frankly, they're pretty un-Australian. We don't really do revolutions. We do upgrades.
We do upgrade.
They want to patch the software, hence the purple patch.
I like that idea. Just download the new version where the economy actually works for everyone. But to do that, they reckon we need to look at money itself differently. This brings us to the braided economy. Now, this sounds a bit technical, but the analogy they use is really, really solid.
It is. It starts with a problem they call the incomplete ledger. Or, to use a simpler term, let's call it the missing book.
The missing book. Okay. What's missing from the book?
Value. Specifically, the value of all the care and community work that happens. Think about how we measure the economy right now. We use GDP. We use the Australian dollar.
Right.
That ledger measures stuff you buy and sell. If you buy a slab of beer from Dan Murphy's, that counts. If you pay a consultant $1 million to tell you how to fire people, that counts.
But what doesn't count?
Okay, think about the bushfires a few years back. Think about the volunteers in the RFS who rush in. They spend thousands, millions of hours fighting fires, making sandwiches for people, clearing debris. In our current economic system, the glitch system,
Mhm.
what is the dollar value of that work?
Financially, it's zero. They don't get paid a cent. In fact, they probably lose money because they're taking time off their day jobs.
Exactly. But if that town burns to the ground because the volunteers didn't show up, the cost is in the billions. So we have this massive silent GDP, the blokes coaching the under-10s footy team on a rainy Tuesday night,
The granny's looking after the grandkids so the parents can go to work.
the surf lifesavers on the beach every weekend. It's the foundational economy.
It's the stuff that actually keeps the country from falling apart. But because it's not in the official ledger, we treat it like it's free. We treat it like it's an infinite resource.
And it's not. People are burning out. Volunteers are getting older. The glitch is assuming you can run a country on free labor and goodwill forever. So the braided economy proposes a fix. Imagine a strong rope. A strong rope isn't one single strand. It's made of multiple braids twisted together.
Okay, I'm picturing a rope.
Strand A is the normal dollar, the AUD. You still use that. You need it to buy your beer, pay your mortgage, buy your ute. This isn't some hippie commune. You still have to participate in the global economy.
Right. I still need dollars to pay the electric bill.
Got it. Correct. But then they want to braid in a second strand, Strand B. They call it the C hour. That stands for community hour.
Okay, stop right there. I can hear the listeners' alarm bells ringing from here.
Mm.
Is this some kind of crypto bro scheme? Am I going to have to buy an NFT of a kangaroo wearing sunglasses? Because if I do, I'm walking out of this studio.
I am so glad you asked that because the documents are extremely specific about this. They explicitly reject crypto bro culture. They say, and I'm quoting here, no NFTs shaped like kangaroos.
Thank God for that. Seriously. So it's not a speculative asset. I can't hoard 1 million sea hours and wait for them to go to the moon so I can buy a Lamborghini.
No, not at all. It is simply a digital receipt. It's proof of work, and the maths is incredibly simple. 1 hour of work equals 1 sea hour.
Okay, break that down for me.
You do 1 hour of recognized work for the community, you do a shift at the local community garden, you help clean up the local creek, you do that surf life-saving patrol on the beach. The system logs that you did that hour, you get 1 sea hour. And it doesn't matter if you were a brain surgeon or a bricklayer. In the community economy, an hour of your service is worth an hour of service. Full stop.
That's actually quite radical. Because in the normal dollar economy, a surgeon's hour is worth a hell of a lot more than a brickie's hour.
In the market economy, yes, absolutely. But the community economy is about valuing contribution and equality. It's about valuing the time you give to your neighbors, pure and simple.
Okay, so I've done my hour. I've helped out at the local men's shed. I've got this sea hour. It's a digital receipt that says, thanks, mate, you helped. What can I actually do with it? Can I spend it?
Yes, and this is the game changer. The plan is to have local councils and participating local businesses accept them. So you could pay for your bus ride to town.
Okay.
You could buy fresh veggies from that same community garden you worked at. You could pay for your kids' entry to the local swimming pool. Or, and this is a big one, you might be able to use them to pay for certain health treatments.
So it takes the pressure off my actual bank account. If I'm a bit short on cash this week, but I've got a bit of free time on Saturday, I can go help out at the school fet, earn some sea hours, and use that to buy the veggies for dinner.
Exactly. It creates a fair go for people who might be asset rich in time or skills, but happen to be cash poor at that moment. It turns someone who might be labeled unemployed into a community asset. It locks that value directly into the local community.
It's basically formalizing the mates rates economy. You know, I'll help you fix your fence if you give me a box of mangoes from your tree, but it's making it system-wide so I don't need to personally know a guy who grows mangoes.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's scaling up mates rates using simple, effective technology.
But wait, what about the tax man? If I earn a sea hour, does the ATO want to cut?
That is the $1 million or the million sea hour question. The documents argue that because it is a non-monetary exchange, it's time for time, service for service, it should sit outside the traditional taxable income bracket, similar to how we treat volunteering now. But that would be a massive legislative fight. They'd have to win that in Canberra.
That would be a hell of a fight. But I can see the appeal. It keeps the business, the value, in the local area.
And speaking of keeping things local, let's talk about where they're actually testing all this, because you can't just roll this out across the whole country overnight. It would be chaos. You need a Petri dish.
A laboratory. And they've picked a very specific and very beautiful Petri dish, Minjerribah.
Ooh.
North Stradbroke Island, just off the coast of Brisbane.
Strati. It's the perfect laboratory for this kind of experiment.
Why there? apart from the fact that the surfing is unbelievable.
Well, the most obvious reason is that it's an island. The documents talk a lot about resilience. If the lights go out on the mainland, say there's a massive grid failure, a flood, a cyber attack, an island needs to be able to look after itself. It's a contained system. If you can make a self-sufficient economy work on Stratti, you can prove it can work anywhere.
And they're not just talking about growing their own veggies over there. They're talking about something they call the silica stack. Now, Stratti is famous for sand mining, right? Which has been a huge controversy for decades.
It has. The big sand mining operations stopped there recently. But this Purple Patch plan wants to completely reimagine that whole industry.
Yeah.
Think about the old model. We dig up the sand, which is incredibly pristine, high-quality silica. We put it on a giant boat and we ship it to China.
Right.
They then turn that sand into glass, or more importantly, computer chips, and then they sell it back to us in the form of an iPhone for 1,000 times the price.
We sell the dirt for a few cents and buy the finished product for $1,000. Classic Australia.
Exactly. The silica stack plan says, stop. Just stop. Keep the sand, make the chips.
Manufacturing computer chips on a holiday island. That sounds like pure science fiction. Isn't that an incredibly complex, expensive process?
It is ambitious, there's no doubt about it. But the logic behind it is something they call sovereign materiality. That's a fancy way of saying make your own essential stuff so you don't rely on a global supply chain that might break at any moment.
Like during the pandemic.
Remember the pandemic? Remember when we couldn't get anything because the ships stopped moving?
I remember I couldn't get toilet paper, let alone sophisticated computer chips.
Exactly. So they want to build a small-scale, high-tech foundry on the island, not to mass produce for the world, but for sufficiency. To turn that local quartz into the essential tech, they need to keep their own systems, their own island running.
And to build the infrastructure for all of this, they have a robot that I am, frankly, completely obsessed with. The sandworm.
Ah, yes, the sandworm.
I saw the picture in the notes. It looks like a giant mechanical earthworm straight out of the movie Dune. But tell me, this isn't just a gimmick. How does it actually help?
It solves a massive logistics and environmental problem. Okay, so if you want to build a tunnel for water pipes or fiber optic cables on an island like Stratti, what do you normally do? You have to bring in tons of concrete.
On a ferry.
On a ferry. That means concrete trucks on ferries. It means heavy diesel machinery tearing up the local roads. It's expensive, it's incredibly slow, and it's very, very carbon heavy.
It's a logistical nightmare.
The sandworm is a tunnel-boring robot, but its innovation is that it uses laser sintering. As it digs through the sand dunes, it uses high-powered lasers to heat the sand around it to its melting point. It literally turns the sand into glass instantly.
Wait, so it digs the hole, and it 3D prints the wall of the pipe at the exact same time.
Using the material that was already there, no concrete trucks,
Yeah.
no ferries, no imported materials, just a robot and a laser creating a glass-reinforced tunnel right there underground.
That is seriously cool. It's literally using the ground you're walking on to build the pipe to carry your water.
It's elegant engineering. But there is a massive catch, a very important one. Minjerribah is native title land. The Quandamooka people are the traditional owners. You can't just have robots digging glass tunnels wherever they feel like it. That would be an absolute disaster.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for destroying thousands of years of cultural heritage in about 5 minutes.
And this is where the Living Treaty comes in. This is the part of the plan that I think is truly revolutionary. Usually, a treaty is a piece of paper, right? It's signed by politicians in suits, filmed for the evening news, and then it's filed away in a drawer somewhere in Canberra. It's static. It's dead.
It's a nice sentiment, but it doesn't actually change how the road gets built on the ground.
The Purple Patch proposes a digital treaty, something that is hard-coded into the operating system of the island's infrastructure itself.
How does a computer know about a treaty?
Okay, let's take the sandworm robot again. It has a GPS. It has a mission from the council to dig a water pipe from point A to point B. But before it can move one single inch, its software has to query the Songlines database. This is a digital map of sacred knowledge and cultural heritage sites provided and curated by the Quandamooka elders.
So it checks the map before it starts digging.
It does more than check it. If the robot's programming tries to plot a course that goes through a sacred site, the system returns what's called a verifiable no.
A verifiable no.
It's a hard stop. The robot physically cannot dig there. The code won't allow it. It's not a request. It's not a please don't dig here sign. It is a digital boundary that enforces the cultural boundary. No arguments, no court cases, just respect built directly into the machine code.
Wow, that's wild. It's ancient culture governing future tech. It's actually giving the land a voice in the system.
It effectively gives the traditional owners a sovereign veto power over the infrastructure without them ever having to stand in front of a bulldozer. The bulldozer just won't start.
That connects to this broader theme of sovereignty that keeps popping up all through the documents. We talked about making your own computer chips, but there's also the digital side of it, the idea of keep your business in your own shed.
Yes, privacy. Because let's be real, we all know what the current deal is. We get free email and free maps. And in exchange, these giant tech companies harvest every single piece of data about us.
We know our phones are listening.
Yeah.
We know our data is being packaged up and sold to some billionaire in California so he can sell us toaster ovens we don't need. Aussies hate that. We value our privacy. We don't like sticky beaks.
We certainly don't. So the Purple Patch proposes a network of what they call sovereign nodes.
Okay, translate that for me. Sovereign node. What's that in tub speak?
Instead of all your data going to the cloud, which is just a fancy marketing term for someone else's computer, it stays on a small box in your own house. They call it a Jetson box.
Like the cartoon, George Jetson.
Exactly like the cartoon. It's a small, powerful computer that just sits on your shelf. Your emails, your family photos, your health data, it all lives there, physically, in your house.
So it's like a digital safe in my study.
Precisely. If Facebook wants to see your photos, they can't just scrape them from their servers. They would have to send a request to your box for permission, and you can just say no. You own and control your own data.
I love that, taking the power back. But here's my question. How does that work if I want to, say, report a pothole to the local council or get my bin collected? The council needs to know where I live. Don't I have to share some data then?
This is where they use a concept called fractal governance. And they use a great analogy for this one, Ramsey Street.
Neighbors. Okay, you've got my attention.
Imagine 3 levels of data sharing. Level 0 is your home. Number 24 Ramsey Street. That's your castle. Total privacy. Nobody sees what happens inside unless you invite them in. That's your Jetson box.
Got it. What happens at number 24 stays at number 24.
Level 1 is the street itself. You and your neighbors. Maybe you share a lawnmower or you check each other's bins when you go on holiday. You share a little bit of information, but only what you voluntarily agree to share. Hey, Harold, my bin is full. Can I use yours?
Yep, simple neighborly stuff. Local trust.
Then there is Level 2, the Erinsborough Council. The council needs to know if the street needs the bins collected. But, and this is the absolute key, they don't need to know whose bin is full. They just need to know the total amount of rubbish on the street.
So the data gets aggregated before it goes to them.
Exactly. The council sees a notification that says, Ramsey Street has 500 kilograms of rubbish this week. They don't see Mrs. Mangle at number 32 has 50 kilograms of cat food tins. They get the big picture data they need to do their job, but your personal business stays in your shed.
Seems so bloody obvious when you explain it like that. Why don't we do that now?
Because right now, data is money. The current system is designed to harvest as much personal detail as possible to sell ads. This plan is designed from the ground up to protect it. And speaking of data, they want to use it to fix politics, too. Which brings us to the Truth Engine.
The Truth Engine. That sounds a little bit ominous, or very handy depending on who you are.
It's designed to take the pub ammo out of politics. You know how it is now. Politicians just yell at each other. One says, this new road will ruin the economy, and the other one shouts back, no, it will save the economy. And it's all just opinion. It's just noise.
By shouting matches, it's pure theater. There are no facts involved.
The Truth Engine is a computer simulation, a digital twin of the city or the region. Instead of just arguing, they run the numbers, they simulate the proposed new road in this digital world. They plug in all the real-world data traffic patterns, the cost of materials, the environmental impact, everything.
Okay.
And the computer just spits out the facts. It says, based on the available data, this road will save an average of 10 minutes of travel time, but will cost $50 million and displace a protected species of frog.
So it's like fact-checking policy in real time. Before it happens.
It's simulation, yeah. It replaces, I reckon, with the data shows. It forces politicians to argue about values. Is saving 10 minutes worth $50 million in the crogs, rather than just lying about the facts themselves?
That would kill about 90% of question time. They wouldn't know what to say to each other if they couldn't just make stuff up.
One can dream, can't we?
All right, moving on. We fixed the economy with Sea Hours. We fixed privacy with the Jetson box. Now let's talk about the politicians themselves. Because there is a section in these documents on health that is, well, it's quite intense and honestly a little bit gross.
You're talking about the DSLOP protocol.
De-slop. It sounds like something you do to a pig trough before you fill it up.
It's a visceral term, isn't it? But it's meant to be. The documents argue that modern life is filling all of us with what they call biological slop.
Explain slop to me.
It's the cumulative effect of the modern world. It's the microplastics in our water. It's the processed food full of preservatives and chemicals. It's the stress hormone from doom scrolling on social media at 2 in the morning. It's bad air quality. They argue all this stuff creates chronic inflammation in our bodies and, crucially, in our brains.
So it's like having a permanent low-grade hangover without the fun of the party the night before.
That is a perfect description. It causes brain fog. It makes us tired, grumpy, reactive, and just unable to think clearly and rationally.
I feel very seen right now. I think everyone listening feels very seen.
We all do, right. And their core argument is this. You can't possibly have a functioning democracy if the citizens are too exhausted and fogged up to think straight. If your brain is inflamed, you lose your cognitive sovereignty. You become easy to manipulate. You get angry at headlines because you don't have the mental energy to actually read the article.
So what's the fix? Is it just taking more vitamins, doing yoga?
Their big intervention is something called Aura. It involves hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Basically putting people in pressurized chambers to flood their bodies with pure oxygen.
The Michael Jackson treatment, isn't that what he used to do?
Essentially, yes. But the idea is to make it accessible for everyone. The science suggests that high-pressure oxygen can significantly reduce inflammation and help the brain heal itself. It clears the fog.
And here's the real kicker. They want to force their own politicians to do this.
They do. It's called the Orogenesis Protocol. Before you can be endorsed as a candidate for the Purple Party, you have to undergo a massive health boot camp. And part of that is 60 sessions in the oxygen tank.
60 sessions? That's huge. That's a serious time commitment.
It is. But the logic is pretty straightforward. Do you want a burnt-out, exhausted, foggy-headed person making decisions about, say, nuclear submarines? Or do you want someone who is physically and mentally sharp, clear-headed, and resilient to stress?
I mean, when you put it like that, it's a no-brainer. We demand our top athletes be physically fit. We demand airline pilots pass regular medicals. Why on earth do we let the Prime Minister run the country on 3 hours of sleep and a diet of meat pies?
Precisely.
Yeah.
They want leaders who are operating at peak cognitive performance. It's not just about health, it's about honesty. And this is where they bring in what they call the Welsh Connection.
The Welsh Connection. This sounds like a spy thriller. What are the Welsh up to?
The Welsh Senate, that's their parliament, has been pioneering some of the world's toughest laws to ban politicians from knowingly lying in office.
What a radical concept, actually expecting them to tell the truth.
The Purple Plan wants to adopt this idea and put it on steroids. They call it the anti-lying law.
So, if a politician tells a porky pie, what happens? Do they get a fine? A slap on the wrist with a wet lettuce?
No. Under this plan, to become a candidate, you have to sign a legally binding contract. A deed. And in that deed, it states that if you are found to have told a barefaced, deliberate lie to the public, not just a mistake or getting a number wrong, but a calculated, intentional lie, you are sacked. You have to resign your seat immediately.
They sign a contract that forces them to resign if they lie.
Yes. It's the ultimate keep the bastards honest move written into a legal document.
That changes the entire game. I mean, imagine an election debate.
Picture it. You have the standard politician from one of the major parties on one side of the stage, spewing talking points and dodging questions. Then you have the purple candidate on the other side. They just stand there and say, look, I have signed a legal document that says I will lose my job and my house if I lie to you right now. My opponent hasn't. Who are you going to trust?
That is incredibly powerful. It's real skin in the game. It treats the voter with actual respect. It says, I am accountable to you, the public, not just to my party bosses in Canberra.
It creates a completely new standard of political integrity. And frankly, I don't know if the old guard could survive in that environment.
So, okay, we've got these oxygen-fueled, truth-telling politicians who are digging tunnels with lasers on an island. It's a lot. But how does this all actually happen? What's the timeline? Because usually these grand plans take about 50 years and never get finished.
They treat the timeline a bit like a video game. They call the smaller projects side quests. But the big boss fight, the major deadline they're working towards is the 2032 Brisbane Olympics.
Ah, the Olympics. The official deadline for getting anything done in Queensland for the next decade.
It's a hard deadline. It's immovable. The world will be watching. And they want to use the Olympics not just to have a party and run some races, but to leave a genuine, lasting legacy. They want to have the braided economy and the sea-hour system fully up and running by then.
Wow. Imagine that. You'll have, what, 50,000 Olympic volunteers? Usually they get a free T-shirt and a pat on the back for their trouble.
In this plan, they get paid in sea hours for every hour they work. You'd have millions of hours of community wealth generated during the 2 weeks of the games. And then when all the tourists and athletes leave, those sea hours are still there in the community. The volunteers can spend them at local businesses.
It actually captures the value of the event for the locals rather than it all just going to the big international sponsors. You know, Coca-Cola makes their money, but the local community gets rich in time credits.
Exactly. It prevents that classic post-Olympic hangover where you're left with a bunch of empty, expensive stadiums and a massive government debt.
And there's this weird but cool detail about music in the plan. The music verse.
Yes. This is part of their communication strategy. They realize that nobody actually reads policy documents. I mean, we do, because it's our job. But normal people don't get home from work and read a 100-page PDF about silica mining regulations on a Friday night.
Correct. That sounds incredibly boring. I'd rather watch paint dry.
So they are hiding the plan in plain sight. In music, they're working with artists to create concept albums, stories, songs that explain the philosophy and the big ideas.
So instead of being handed a pamphlet, you get a banger on Spotify that explains the braided economy.
Essentially, yes, they want the future to sound like a good song, not like a tax return. It's about building a culture around these ideas. If you can get people singing along to the idea of fixing the fence, you've already won half the battle.
That's so clever. Politics is usually so dry and academic. Making it catchy is, well, it's dangerous if you're a dictator, but if you're trying to build a genuine community movement, it makes perfect sense.
And speaking of political strategy, we should just quickly touch on the real-world context that's mentioned in the sources. The Federal Division of Faro.
Oh, yes, down in rural New South Wales. The documents mention a bit of a hypothetical scenario involving the current political figures there, Sussan Ley and Angus Taylor.
It basically paints a picture of a fractured liberal national coalition, a potential leadership spill. The big parties are obsessed with fighting each other in Canberra, and in that chaos, that power vacuum, an independent movement like this can sneak in under the radar.
It's the Stephen Bradbury strategy.
The ice skater.
Exactly. Everyone else in the race crashes on the final corner, and he just calmly skates through the middle to win the gold medal.
That is exactly the strategy. They are targeting areas where people feel forgotten by the major parties, places where the glitch is hitting the hardest, rural areas, coastal communities, places where the Canberra bubble feels like it's a million miles away. They aren't trying to win the inner city seats in Sydney and Melbourne. They're trying to win the forgotten places.
So let's put it all together. When you boil it all down, what is the Purple Patch?
I think it's fair dinkum futurism. It's taking the highest tech available, AI, robotics, blockchain principles, laser sintering, and grounding it all in the oldest, most traditional Aussie values we have.
Mateship.
Mateship, fairness, looking after your own backyard, respecting the land and its history.
It's incredibly high-tech, but it feels old school. It feels really grounded.
It feels human. I think that's the core of it. For the last 30 years, we've been forced to adapt to technology. This is about building a system that is designed to fit humans rather than forcing humans to fit the system.
I guess the question for everyone listening is pretty simple then. If you could pay for your groceries by helping your neighbor fix their fence for an hour, would you do it?
And would you ever vote for a politician who had signed a legally binding contract promising to resign if they told a deliberate lie?
I think I know the answer to that one for most people. Look, whether this whole grand plan works or not, whether we get the sand-digging robots or not, you have to admit, it's a much better vision for the future than just sitting back and watching the price of lettuce go up forever.
It's a vision of a future that isn't a dystopia. It's just a purple patch. A good run. A bit of luck that we make for ourselves.
I'll drink to that. Preferably a beer paid for with a sea hour I earned mowing the local footy oval. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
A pleasure.
Keep your stick on the ice, and we'll catch you next time.